Welcome back to Newsfeed PM. Time for some business news now. International sugar prices have gone up at a faster pace. The NY Sugar, the world benchmark contract for raw sugar trading, is at a 7th-month high. Drought conditions in Brazil have reduced the country's sugar production prospects and have pushed sugar prices up sharply over the past 2 weeks. Now, Brazil is the world's largest sugar supplier by far, with a 70% share of the export trade market. The dry conditions are expected to hit crop output and drive up prices of the sweet commodity. Now, here to let us know whether South African consumers will have to pay more to sweeten their tea and porridge is Sifiso Mhlaba, Economist, and the South African Sugar Association Market Trade Policy Director. Sifiso, let's talk sugar now. It's in every South African household. It's quite a pricey item in terms of the grocery list. Is this Brazil's situation going to drive up prices here locally?
Good day, Matteo, and thanks for having me. Matteo, we have certainly been watching and observing with concern the situation and developments in Brazil. But I must indicate South Africa is a surplus sugar producer. So we produce more than sufficient and what we need for the local market. And while we anticipate the situation to have an impact on international prices, we don't anticipate that to translate to increases in the local sugar prices. So we do anticipate prices will remain quite stable and will not be responding or reacting to the developments in Brazil.
But South Africa does have imports of Brazilian sugar.
That's absolutely correct, Matteo. And maybe just to dwell on that point. So as I've indicated, we produce more than sufficient sugar. And just to give some context, for the current season, we've had only about 20,000 tons of imports, and 14,000 tons of that is coming from Brazil. However, the total demand in South Africa is approximately 1.6 million, and a significant portion of that is being supplied by the South African producers. So at the current moment, we don't anticipate, therefore, any transmission from the Brazilian prices into the local market. We are supplying more than 98% as the South African producers, so we should be quite covered.
Speaking of imports, is there a competitive levy in place to protect local players and local sugar growers?
Absolutely. And it's essential that there is a level of protection. And maybe some context, Matteo, the international prices of sugar are distorted. So essentially, as you said, Brazil accounts for 70% of sugar trade. And this is essentially where they dump the sugar that they don't need in their local market. So the international prices are not really reflective of cost. And if there is no protection, then we would see a flood of imported sugar into the local market that would have a destabilizing impact on local producers. And these are both growers and millers. So our government has recognized that, and there is what we call a dollar-based reference price that is currently set at $680. That is meant to protect us from the dumped import market. And this is not unique to us. So all sugar producers do have a level of protection that ensures that the dumped sugar doesn't flow and destabilize the local jobs and socio-economic impact that is contributed by the local industry.
But the local industry are not in the best of positions thus far, the likes of Tonga Hewlett under administration. Is that putting strain on other producers like Salati Sugar?
You're absolutely right. I think in 2012, THL did go under voluntary business rescue. It certainly did destabilize the industry for that season. But I think there's been significant effort by industry, by government, and by other stakeholders to really try and get THL out of business rescue. From an operation perspective, I think they did stop crushing in 2022 for a few weeks. But thereafter, they've been crushing the cane and they've been producing the sugar. So I think operationally, the sugar industry is in a good state. We are able to produce more than what we need, and we are able to crush majority of the cane. And I think the other producers have also stepped into the play and ensure that the local market remains supplied.
Is the local market getting closer to a share of those profits in terms of black sugarcane farmers that can really get into the market and also supply South African consumers?
Absolutely. I think, Mateo, your question really speaks to the heart of the sugar industry and what we've been implementing as part of the master plan. This is really around transformation and the share of black producers. And we're happy to say that from last season, black producers accounted around 27% of the cane produced and crushed. And I think that's a massive number. And transformation remains key. And we spent in the last 5 years over R1 billion to support in the main black growers, but also specifically small-scale growers to ensure that they remain part of the value chain and they're able to continue and send sugarcane to the mills. So certainly black growers are part of the value chain, and there is a vision by the industry to ensure that we at least get to 51% of sugarcane coming from black farmers.
Let's talk then about the sugarcane value chain master plan, one that you've been part of as an association. What does that plan to do? Are we going to see a lot of growers in the country getting into the value chain, maybe producing products that come from the sugarcane?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question, Mateo. As you rightly point out, we've been intricately involved in the master plan since about 2020 when it was launched. And what the master plan tries to do, Mateo, is it recognizes that sugar as a product is critical, but we need to move from being a sugar industry to a sugar cane-based value chain industry. So what this means is we need to continue producing sugar as a very sweet product that we all like, but we also need to investigate what other products we can produce from that sugar cane. And products such as sustainable aviation fuel, properly polylactic acid, and bioethanol are those that are being investigated. And the master plan is giving us that platform to work with our government partners, the DTIC, IDC, and others, as well as other stakeholders to investigate which products we can produce and what policy support we need to be able to produce those products. I think it's also worth pointing out, Mateo, that sugar industries that are successful, like Brazil, like India, have long gone into the diversification route and are producing multiple products. So it really is the way that we can remain sustainable into the future. And we are working quite hard with our partners, and we are looking forward to having to move towards our multiple products that can come onto both the products and the shelf, as well as the industrial products such as ethanol and cogeneration that can be produced from sugarcane. Ultimately, sugarcane is an energy crop, and we really need to try and ensure that we produce as many products as we can from that energy crop. Use the full stick of the cane rather than only producing sugar.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen India banning sugar exports so they can start producing ethanol there, and that's where they want their focus to be. Just how robust is our local industry in terms of supplying other companies, other opportunities out there, just not on the South African consumer table? Is the sugarcane going somewhere else where we can leverage?
At this stage, Mateo, our focus has really been on sugar, and we're obviously supplying the industrial market, the sweets guys, the confectionery guys, the milk, and all of those. And we're also supplying the retailers. But we really, as you say, I think the ability to produce other products gives you flexibility to ensure that you can take advantage as and when market dynamics change. So at this stage, we largely are producing sugar. Some of the milling companies are producing some products, but it's not at a scale that's sufficient at this stage. And we are working on government to ensure that we create that enabling policy framework so that the sugarcane can be used more fully and create the socio-economic impact that we know we can create as an industry.
There may be some of our viewers who are interested now in this particular industry. Is it capital intensive, hard to get into? Can you just share, how hard it is to get into this farming industry?
I must say the sugar industry, has two levers in essence. One is cane growing, and one is the milling. So obviously, the milling aspect is quite capital intensive, and you need to have sufficient capital to get into that. But from a cane growing perspective, It does require some level of investment, but it's not difficult to get into it. Of course, the key issue is you need to have the land so that you can be able to plant the cane. But it is also quite labor intensive. It does create approximately 60,000 jobs, direct jobs that the industry creates. So if you have the land and it is close to a mill, you can certainly get into it and help us create the jobs that the country so desperately needs.
Thank you for that insightful conversation. Sifiso Mhlaba from the South African Sugar Association. He is the Market and Trade Policy Director there.